Hey Jen, so I just wanted to go through this app. I know that during our last meeting, it wasn't really the right setting for you to get to really go through and see things, and ideally I would have walked through it with you to show you how things work based on what we had discussed previously. Now, obviously, there are going to be changes made to our mock-ups before we start to go into the app because we have discussed some things over the dinner that need to be added into the app. But let me just go ahead and get started with it. So what we're looking at here is not a prototype per se. This is actually a mock-up, meaning that what we're working with is minimal code. So what I have built here are a series of images with basically clickable links, but it is not a functioning app and therefore not a prototype. This is just a mock-up for proof of concept. So what we're looking at here is the first page. This is the login or sign up page. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll go into the sign up. Before I do click that sign up page, ideally what would happen, and we didn't have time to include that, is you click sign up and it will take you to a page and ask you if you are a model, artist, or instructor. And the reason why is that depending on which of those you are, uh, the artist and instructor for the most part being the same, depending on which of those you are, you will see or you will have access to different features in the app. For example, an artist or instructor who is not a model, of course, is not going to be receiving notifications for gigs that need to be filled. A model who is not an instructor, and I have seen at least one example of someone who fits, uh, a few examples of people who fit this category who function both as artists or instructors, which is why you're able to select multiple if need be. That part of this is not here. When I click sign up, it's going to go straight to what the model would see if they were to simply say that they were a model. So, without further ado, I will sign up, and it's going to skip the page and take us straight to what the model will see. Now, as the model, so these are all ideally would be drop-down menus, but these again are images with a set of links and therefore not clickable. This is what the model would be dealing with. They'd have to click this to enter their profile image, and they could perhaps enter a series of images so that the instructor will be able to uh, see more of the model they're dealing with. You click here so that you can enter your name, your sex, physical attributes, and this would be something very simple like are you lean, are you athletic, are you muscular, are you heavy set. Down here, zip code and range. This, as we discussed before, would only apply for bookings that are set in the distant future. I will get more into that, but what we did discuss was that for emergency bookings, if someone needs a booking filled right away, like within the next 5 minutes or the next half hour, uh, what you enter here would not apply because what the app would do is interact with the GPS, and whatever group of people are within range of a certain place that needs a model at the time the post is made, it'll be those models that receive the notification. So if I happen to be in West Covina and I'm a model, and someone in Santa Monica posts something, ideally there would be plenty of models in Santa Monica who would receive the notification, and therefore I would not. Down here, schools represented, another important feature because as we know, there are certain schools that require you to be previously listed in their system, or at the very least previously approved by the coordinator of that particular school before a model can work there. And then down here, contact information. Contact information would be viewable once someone books you, once an artist books you. Your contact information would be viewable to them, and their contact information viewable to you, and vice versa. I think that we discussed other alternatives, though. I think that because we were talking about a verification process, that some of this information would just simply be out in the open. What is not included in this app is a browse feature. I'm sorry, in this mock-up is a browse feature, and we did discuss that that was something that would be necessary so that perhaps an artist just wanted to go through and look and see what models are available before, so that they can make a direct request to a specific model. So that is something that would be included in the next iteration of our mockup. That is not included here. Anyway, I will go ahead and continue. So this would be the main page of the model. You see here there are my gigs and my posts. The reason, I hope this app, there we go. So my gigs and my posts. The reason we have these two is because this particular user for this mockup that I made is both an artist, an instructor, and a model. So before I get into the details of this, I'll just quickly show you that. So there's the profile. This will become necessary for my explanations later. This is the profile of the person as a model, and here they list their gender, their physical attributes, location, and range, which as we discussed only applies, the home location, that is, only applies in the event that they are receiving notification for a booking that's maybe months out of the way. And then schools represented, as we mentioned. The model will list the schools that they work at, or the systems that they're included in. I don't think we didn't make a clickable page for that. So here I will click the instructors page. So this particular user also happens to be an instructor. The important feature here is schools represented. So the instructor may work at ELAC and Arts Center, and those happen to be two schools that you have to be pre-approved for, and you have to go through a hiring, and SMC, you have to go through a process of hiring before they can put you on the roster. So that's why that is important. When the instructor makes a post looking for a model, and then they want to select which school is included, which school they need the model booked for, rather than them having to click a drop-down menu that would list every school in Southern California, the drop-down list for the instructor would only include the schools that they have selected that they work at. This would make it easier for the instructor, so they don't have to go, let's say I work at Woodbury, and that's a W, so now I have to scroll all the way down as an instructor to find Woodbury. Ideally, the instructor selects which schools they work at, so perhaps they work at 1, maybe they work at 3, and that way the drop-down menu for them is much smaller, and it makes the process of sending out notifications or putting out their, I'll call it listing for lack of a better word, putting out their listing would be much less complicated. So I will go in here, back to gigs. So these are the gigs that are being received by the model. So down here are the booked events, and down up here are the events that are available. So let's pretend I am a model and I have received a bunch of push notifications. By the way, we discussed having text and emails also sent in the event that the model cannot see the push notifications. So I see the notifications, I sign into the app, and I see that, wow, there are 4 different bookings that need to be filled, and of course, because I have received them, I know that these are all ones that I fit the qualifications for. So I will select the first one, so it says ELAC. Alright, so I'm selecting this, and it shows me the date that it's on, so in this case it's June 27th. This is not an emergency booking. The school, the type, nude figure, the total pay, in smaller letters, the pay rate and the number of hours, as well as the exact schedule, and some notes. In this case, bring a cane or staff, anything you might find interesting. And of course, the size of this text is going to have to be reworked. We did this mock-up, I built the images for this mock-up on a desktop, and so this of course just a proof of concept. We will make the edits for the next mock-up to make this more visibly workable. So right here, accept and decline. If you don't accept or decline it and someone else does, the listing of course will just disappear from this list. If you do accept, it will show up down here in your list of booked events. So these are the events that you have booked in the app. Now it is the model's responsibility to take whatever bookings they have and log it into their own calendar. Because this is not a calendar app, that would be a whole different app altogether. Uh, Google has their own calendar, for example, and you can see that there are certain complexities that would make this a much more clunky app. And from what I understand, we seem to have a mutual agreement that we're trying to get all the what is absolutely necessary, and have that something that would work for everyone, as opposed to making something that's overcomplicated. And of course, that would extend the timeline that would be required to get everything done. We don't want that. So anyway, off on a tangent there. So the booked events here, I will click on the events I have booked so you can see the differences here. So of course, the buttons for accept or decline are not there, but down here there is a button for repost. If you cannot click this booking, click here to cancel and find a replacement. What this button does is, if I'm the model and I realize, oh, well, I can't make this booking after all. Well, rather than burdening the instructor any further, I can simply click repost, and the instructor would simply receive a notification that would say, the model you have previously booked can no longer work the event. The listing and the notifications have been recirculated, and then the process would start over. Of course, the instructor would receive a list of models a list of 3 ideally, who are able to accept that booking, and then it's out of the model's hands, and then it's up to the instructor to approve one of those models. Now, one of the things we discussed, I mentioned notifications a minute ago. One of the things we discussed is reminders. So one of the things that this app would do, as we discussed, would be to send additional reminders, and this, of course, would be via text, email, and push notifications perhaps, so that maybe a day before, 2 days before, to make sure that the model does not forget, to make sure that there are no issues and everything is seamless. And if the model did happen to forget, then they can simply go back and say, oh geez, I totally forgot I was supposed to start this multi-day booking, I'm doing whatever. Then they can just click Westworld and the whole thing is taken care of. So here in my posts, this is something that either the model, so let's say I'm a model and I reposted a whole bunch of things, this is what I would see. Ideally, the model would not be reposting 6 different gigs at once, but emergencies happen, who knows. But this is also what the instructor sees. So if you see here, the difference between in my gigs and my posts is, in my gigs down here, we have a list of all the schools it's at. As the reposter and the instructor, you know which schools you're dealing with, especially if you're the instructor. So right here, it just shows which models you have booked. Now up here, there are no models booked because these are pending, and that is noted accordingly. So if I click pending, what I'm looking at here now is the original, the post that I put up from my perspective. So didn't include I included the date here, but it didn't include the time. But that will of course be visible in this. I just forgot to include that for this example. But these are the required fields: so date, type, location, and of course time. And then the unrequired fields, which would be school, sex, physical attributes. You could choose those if it mattered to you, but these are the ones you could leave blank if you just needed any model. In the event that perhaps you just happen to be having a discussion with someone in person, or you're talking to someone on the phone, like, oh, my model canceled on me, or I need a model, whatever the situation may be, and you happen to book a model out of the app, well, you can just go back in here and cancel the request, and that whole thing is simple and dealt with. Down here, so that was the pending request. Down here are the booked listings, and so if you go in here, you can click one of the booked listing and see that this is the model that you're working with, and you can put down here, you have the option to click cancel booking. Maybe something comes up, or who knows what the situation is, in which case the model will receive a notification. Or you can select request new model. The model ideally would just receive the same notification. It would say something simple like your instructor has canceled the booking. That would make things easier for them. So right here, we have up here the model info button, and this would go to the profile of the model that you have booked for this particular gig. And you can click any of these and it would show you their attributes. This ideally would be in a drop down fashion so that it's not a big clunky page and that it's not linked, so you don't have to link to another page every time you want to see one of the attributes. You can just click it and it would drop down. So if we go back here, that I believe is most of the app. Oh, so down here is the add button. So if you wanted to, forgot to mention that, so it's not visible in your gigs, but in your posts as an instructor, you can click down here to add a new listing, and that is not this button isn't clickable, but what you'd link to is something very similar to this. Now to go down here, I'll show you the profile. This just shows. Oh, I think I showed you that a minute ago, didn't I? Well, I guess the video is over. Anyway, if there are any additional questions, please let me know, and I will send you the mock-up. The mock-up is based more on the notes that we had. I'm sorry, not the mock-up. The flowchart is based more on the notes we had in our discussion over dinner. So that should be more accurate and more in tune to what we had in mind. If there are any edits that need to be made, please let me know, and I will go in and do that so that by the time we make a more fleshed out mock-up, we'll have something that would look much closer to what we'll be dealing with as a prototype. Anyway, I hope you have a good evening and a great week.